Morning, guys. We are going to speak of how to create depth on these small parcels, or on any parcel for that matter. But one of the things that I'm dealing with here on a parcel, and I'm doing a lot of the stuff on the home farm here, and trying. You've seen that the last video. If you follow along, excuse me, follow along. You've seen the last video where we did some improvement right here, and I did this hinge cutting right here. And started, that's the end of that hinge cutting, and we created that corridor all the way down to the bottom of the hill here, and then off to down around the end of the pond. What we're dealing with here is, and I see this a lot, so I'm doing some of this work on the home farm to maybe take a minute and show you guys how I do these on other farms, and how you can create depth that you don't have. So this situation here, right over there where you see the hinge cut in the background, that is right next to the property line. And the reason that I did that is we tried to always run stuff parallel, put stuff interior. In this situation I don't. This is my home farm. I'll show you in the background overlooking it. That's my shop and my office, and the kids' 4-H barns and everything, and the ponds down below. And then obviously right here behind me is our house. And so what you have, I don't have the to run stuff lengthwise. I can only run it across, and the reason that is because this here is this big ridge that runs across the property and runs perpendicular to it. And this runs right into where we've always, we've hunted here, and I put the food plot down below it now, and created some more things that weren't here years ago. And because of that, in the past, these deer have been bedding on the neighbors, and they do, the neighbors to the west, they do a good job. They've got a good QDM project going, and they're good folks, and so we've always kind of worked together. But that's a big chunk, that's 400 and some acres to the west of me. And then on the east side of here, like I've told you before, I've got or about 540 or whatever it is on the east. And I've got the 12 right in the center, this long 12. So it's a bypass farm. I know that. I knew that going into it years ago. I didn't buy it for a hunting parcel. But what I'm trying to do now is, because of all the years of experience that I've had on here hunting, I'm trying to take this all, and I don't plan on being here this fall. I'm selling it as soon as the coronavirus is gone. But make a long story short, what I've got is and I'll show you as I'm talking this, I'll show you so it makes more sense on an aerial. But I have this, my property, my 12 acres here is, it is 330 wide. So if you take 330 feet, that doesn't give you a lot of depth at all. So what we've done is I'm going to, like I've told you, got that octagon blind coming, and with bow windows in it. And they also, rifle windows, so whoever, we can use it for either. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that right on the bank right here. Right in these, there's actually a hemlock right here and a couple white pines. And what it is, guys, as you can see, it's right there from the house, right over the bank. Walk right down to it. And the law is, it gets different in every state, but the law is here in Michigan it has to be 300 feet from a dwelling. Well, that's if you don't own it. If you own it, you can be, you can be closer. So that one is well within that distance. But it is inside of a window where we have to we have to make it work. I just don't have a lot of options. So what we've got here is I'm going to show you how to create this depth. So what we've got, guys, is to create depth, and especially this is a ridge, and it's fairly steep. So I need to be able to get in and out of that blind undetected, like we've always talked. It's off the food plot. I'm from where that's at, it's probably 75 yards, but it's downhill, kind of tucked around the corner, so when the deer go past me, they're out in the food plot, and I can get out the back door of this, and they'll never bust us. But I just don't have the depth to try to hold any deer or to promote, you know, you're not going to hold them on a small piece like this. I know it's a bypass, but to promote some doe bedding. Now everybody is so focused on buck bedding, sometimes you forget it all starts with the does, with the doe bedding. And this is what I want to do, is I want to try to create some bedding, some general bedding. You know, you're going to have some immature bucks that hold in there, but what that does is that brings the bedding area, the buck bedding area, as long as it's, you know, you can't control the neighbors in this situation, but this situation is they don't put a lot of pressure in that one area, and it's going to promote, if I put doe bedding here, it will promote buck bedding close behind it. And that is something that I'm going to do. So I'm going to, you know, to promote this, though, you can't plant like a screen in this situation the way it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down through here as soon as the weather permits, and I'm going to make it so it's about 50 yards from the bow blind, 50 yards over, and I'm going to go right down the hill here, and I'm going to kind of do what I do with my transition areas. I'm going to cut these trees out, but not unlike a transition area. I'm going to actually hinge these, and I'm going to hinge them to the outside. I'm going to put them right to the outside. By doing that, towards where I want the bedding. So by doing that, they're going to lay on the side hill here all the way down. And if I can get a couple to go parallel with it, to try to, what I'm doing is I'm creating a wall. But where I see a lot of people fail is they create these walls with the intention of creating depth. But like I've always told you, and I highly recommend, is if you're going to hinge or you're going to put these trees on the ground and promote, you're promoting bedding. So if I, like this situation, I'm doing it 50 yards from my bow blind to promote bedding, to get these bucks to come closer and bed tighter into them. And, you know, so they all end up down in the food plot. Problem is, if I follow these trees down right here, it's creating bedding. And so what I need to do is I need to plant something on the back side of it, a screen. But by doing that, these interior wood food plots that I see a lot of folks doing, you have to remember where the sun's at. The sun is always in that southern part of the sky up here where we are, and it doesn't allow for a lot of sunlight on those small trails. So in this situation, you got to remember, if you start this and you create this wall, you have to be able to get sunlight. So take these trees out, like there's an oak right there that if I can't get it to tip or can't get it to go down the hill, it's going to have to be cut out and go right down there. And that way, so you have, after your hinge is done, so your initial first bedding is done, you get down to the bottom, or going down to the bottom, and what you've got now you've got a 10-15 yard opening behind where your bedding is starting. That's where you can initiate this screen, put this screen. Now what you have is you have 50 yards, you have a buffer. In normal situations on normal farms, when we're running parallel, we have way more than that. But this situation, I've got 50 yards. And now I've got a screen. I'll have a screen, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, I'm going to transplant some pine down through there, some spruce. I'm going to create a wall, and on the inside, you know, going towards the bedding area, then I'll have a bunch of switchgrass that I'm going to plant in. And then on the back side of that, then that's right tight behind that is the start of the bedding. That's how you create depth in a hurry on small parcels. But unlike, don't take this tip and implement it on food. A lot of mistakes being done out there still. I was on a farm before this all happened, this winter, end of the winter there, going into spring. And that's exactly what they did. They took this edge feathering tip to try to create depth, and they put it right on the edge of their food plots. And all last year they had two bucks that they seen, and they were immature bucks, and before that they were pretty consistent. And the reason that is, guys, is because you're creating nocturnal deer movement, but they were still hunting their food plots. So now you've got bedding way too close to the feed, and their idea was to create depth, but the problem was they created way too much pressure. They created more pressure than they were already doing by hunting the food plots to begin with. And so now the deer lay right there on the edge of the food plots, and they are more apt to be nocturnal, like I've said, and they don't get up and move. And when they get up and move, they're in the food plots that you're there and try to get off, and they're busted. And they learn real quickly that there's no need to get up and move to those plots until you're gone. And so that's why, one, you don't do the edge feathering on the food plots. Two, you have to give yourself a buffer, and you have to be between, like I am here, the food, the blind. I'm 75 yards in this situation. I'm 75 yards from the food plot, up on a bank. It's a pinch point between there and the pond. They have to go past me to get to the food, and I'm creating a wall 50 yards to the west. So north wind, west wind, it's all perfect. Now the only thing I got going against me in this situation is it's a slope that goes down here, and it's a pretty steep slope. So my bedding, I'm going to have to be creative. And that's a different video here that I'm going to tie this into, but I'm going to have to be creative. I'm going to go in and make landings by hand, make landings for these does to bed on, and hopefully that moves some of these bucks closer in on neighboring properties, surrounding areas, and we can get more attention here quicker during the daylight hours to whoever takes this over is going to have potential. I've had great success here. The kids have had great success here, but there's just things that can be done here that would just, you know, I've hunted it with a tree stand, not out of a box blind, not closer to the house here, and it's worked. And now it's time to just, you know, kind of let that go and promote it for the next person so they can be successful. Anyway, so that's the theory. You're going to see that process here coming shortly in a video, but that's how you create depth on a small parcel. But you just have to create it in the right spot and know what you're creating so you don't create more issues for yourself, more harm than good. Thanks, guys.